Domestic violence is a public health crisis that affects millions of people every year. That is why organizations like the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence exist, to be the voice of this issue, to advocate on behalf of survivors, and to advocate for actions and solutions that will empower these individuals and create a world where no person lives in fear. Today, we are joined by Megan Scanlon, President and CEO of the Coalition, to talk about why this work matters and what can be done. The Municipal Voice is a Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state-local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or member municipal leaders. Megan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, it's good to have you back. It's been a little over a year since we had you on the show last time, and obviously this is still an important topic to cover. So thank you for returning. We started last year with a brief overview, and for listeners that didn't catch that one last year, might be a good place to start. So just again, briefly, a little bit about your organization and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence, we are a statewide advocacy organization. We are actually made up of 18 direct service providers that provide services such as counseling, housing, advocacy, court-based advocacy services for children to domestic violence victims and survivors and their families. We also happen to run the 24/7 statewide domestic violence resource hotline that's called CT Safe Connect. So anybody that is either experiencing family or intimate partner violence or might know of somebody that can call in and speak to a live advocate 24/7. They can actually call, text, email, or chat with an advocate 365 days a year.
Wherever they feel safest or most comfortable, they can do it that way.
Yes. Yep.
That's great. I think for a lot of people, this is certainly an uncomfortable topic to talk about. But in a lot of ways, your work is letting people know that domestic violence, is out there and that the resources are also out there, and that's kind of crucial work. How do you handle that role as an organization?
Well, I mean, our main role is advocacy, training, and technical assistance. So we handle it in a lot of different ways on a daily basis. So one can be literally coming into any organization or community partner that wants training on essentially what is domestic violence and the ways that it can present itself, whether it be in the workplace or outside of the workplace, and the resources available. We also work, obviously, a lot on prevention. So defining what a healthy relationship is. So we approach the work that way. And then we work a lot at the federal and state level in terms of advocacy with educating legislators and policymakers on the dynamics of domestic violence and family violence and how that may impact some of the policies that they may be proposing, depending on their work.
Yeah. That kind of leads us into why we're talking right now. You just got through October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Yes.
And which, is kind of, you're working year round, obviously, but a lot of events are focused in that time. So can you talk a little bit about some of the events you did around the state to promote awareness during October?
Yeah, so a lot of the events that we do in October are events that allow us to sort of reflect and often remember the lives that were lost, either throughout that previous year or even beyond. So you'll definitely see our 18 member organizations host vigils as one event that they do of many during that time frame. And it's really just to sort of like take a moment to honor the lives and the family members and the friends that have been impacted by family or intimate partner violence. So you'll see that, but then you'll also see educational walks. You'll see breakfasts. You'll see sometimes golf tournament. There's ways in which all of our members try to interact and bring awareness about domestic violence, about the impact of domestic violence on friends, family, children, but
Hmm.
also to highlight the work that they're doing so that individuals know that there are resources out there, that this is not something that you have to go through alone, and that there are, safe, free, and confidential resources statewide that you can take advantage of if you find
Yeah.
yourself in a family or intimate partner violence situation.
Um, Talking about all the different events, we noticed one actually kind of right outside our offices in New Haven.
Mhm. Yeah,
You had an event with fellow organizations. I think it was BH Care and the
yeah,
Hope Family Justice Center.
yeah.
Um, and interestingly, coverage in the media of that event decided to lead with the fact that men are victims of domestic violence too. It said
Hmm.
that 1 in 7 men are victims of domestic violence over their lifetimes, as compared to 1 in 4 in women.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Senator Blumenthal, talking about it, said that domestic violence is not just a women's issue; it is a men's issue, it's a family issue, and it's a societal issue. Can we consider all these numbers separately? Is domestic violence against women different than domestic violence against men?
I think some of the same principles apply. So I think this is like a unique, so family and intimate partner violence, I think, is unique in the way that it doesn't really, there's no like socioeconomic or gender status that it maybe discriminates more against the women. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, we serve more women than we do men
Yep.
statewide. Women tend to come to us for services but I think the general principles are the same. Like if you start to notice, that you're getting isolated from friends and family, regardless of gender, well, that's a warning sign. If you start to notice, an individual's trying to control access to resources, whether it be
Mm.
financial or otherwise, that's another warning sign. If you have an individual that starts to threaten harm on you, a pet, or family member, again, regardless of gender, those are all warning signs
Mm.
um, that can pop up in any relationship, and a one that's certainly more prevalent now than maybe before with technology use is, an individual's ability to track not just like your location with your technology, but also everything you're doing on
Yeah.
your phone or computer, or something like that too. Um, so I think we really try to emphasize like the signs and the warning
Hmm.
signs in a relationship, um, over the gender dynamics that might be
Hmm.
happening, because I think those things present similarly. And
Yeah.
with kids and teens, we really try to define what is a healthy relationship. We try to talk about jealousy and why that's not healthy, and so there's definitely human behaviors, regardless of gender, that come
Hmm.
out as warning signs that we try to educate people on.
Yeah. Do you guys get involved at all with any sort of like elder abuse issues? Is that something?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's part of the work that we do. We actually have three of our sites. So BH Care, Hope Family Justice.
Hmm.
Um, we have Safe Futures down in New London, and Susan B. Anthony in Torrington.
Hmm.
They are actually working with us to make sure that we cover the entire state for elder abuse. Um, so that's a project that we're currently working on with Department of Social Services to be able to better serve the elderly population, because we
Yeah.
know that is part of our work. It doesn't get talked about clearly as much as the intimate partner violence piece of the work,
Yeah.
but elder abuse, whether it be family or partner, or friend,
Yeah.
um, or caregiver, whoever, whatever the label is a big piece of the work that we're trying to focus on.
And yeah, there's all sorts of different people who are, easier to prey upon in some ways.
Yes. Yeah. Easier to take advantage of, easier to control access to resources or, financial or basic needs or otherwise. So, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. We're excited about that work and excited to be able to work with DSS on that and cover
Yeah.
the state.
So I think there's a tendency maybe to view all these issues in terms of the individual that is victimized rather than as a systemic problem. That there are so many individual problems rather than one societal problem. But as a societal issue, is there a way to think about this in an encompassing way?
Yeah. I mean, I guess my way of thinking about it is that I think this is a preventable issue, whether you're talking about um, elder abuse, intimate partner violence, family violence. Um, all of these issues are preventable,
Hmm.
100% preventable. Unfortunately, we as a society don't really fund prevention work.
Hmm.
So we don't put the emphasis on the prevention side. So we create those opportunities. But I think it's all of our obligation to make sure that we're living in a community, a state, a country that's free from violence. And
Yeah.
obviously that encompasses with the work that we do, but it certainly includes gun violence, sexual violence, and other forms of violence. So I think our biggest thing is to have individuals educated on this issue, regardless of whether or not you faced it yourself,
Hmm.
so that you can be in a position to even simply just make that connection to the statewide resource hotline, to be able to say to somebody, hey, like, I know you should call this number, or I know you could do this, or to even identify the warning signs, or to say to somebody, I don't think that's right. Like, I don't think
Hmm.
what you're experiencing, you should be experiencing. And I think getting to that societal reaction or that zero tolerance in
Hmm.
society of this is the goal. But I think a lot of that comes through education, awareness building. Um, and I just think we have a lot more work to do.
Yeah. So you'll have a lot of work. Your organization does serve 40,000 people a year. It's
Yeah.
109 people every day, if you divide it up. And last year, when we were talking, you were saying that that was getting worse.
Yeah.
It's a year later. Is that still the case? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better?
Yeah, I think what we've seen is like our numbers have stayed steady, but the issues facing people have changed. So
Hmm.
we're definitely seeing more intersection of substance use and mental health than we have before. We're seeing more children that are subject to or witness to the violence in the home, which we do obviously know, impacts whether or not they're likely to either they themselves be in an unhealthy relationship or to perpetrate that violence in their lifetime. So we've seen those two big trends, and then
Yeah.
I think the last one that's concerning for us is that we've just seen situations that are escalating much faster.
Hmm.
So a conflict happens between two people, and that conflict is escalating to much more lethal or potentially fatal behavior
Hmm.
than maybe traditionally has in the past. So that those are the sort of three things that we're looking at as um, negative trends in the
Yeah.
work.
And in your work, have you come up with any sort of idea of even anecdotally reasons why some of these trends are? Like, do you have suspicion as to why things are going this way?
I think some of the children being witness to it is definitely something that is still like ever present from the pandemic.
Just like kids being home from
More
school
kids being
or parents
home,
working at home, that kind of
parents
stuff.
out of work or making the choice to stay home because there's access to childcare might not be in that household's plan for whatever reason. Um, so that I think you could sort of say, okay, some of
Hmm.
that could be the pandemic. Um, the substance use and mental health, I think we're seeing that across a lot of different human services.
Hmm.
So I think it's kind of spilling over um, into the domestic violence service system and the
Yeah.
domestic violence movement from other causes. And then the last one, we don't really have like a scientific piece on this,
Hmm.
but I think what we've just seen in terms of society is that there's this sort of like heightened, um, I don't know what you call it, like almost permission,
Hmm.
um, to act more erratically or to behave more violently. So, I'm hopeful that some of those things can we can redirect and switch courses
Yeah.
um and some of them I'm not sure about.
Yeah. And it's scary to think about some of those things.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to explain why some of these things are bad or
Yeah.
inappropriate way to behave. You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM. Should people be able to recognize the signs of domestic violence?
Yeah, well, yes. So what I will say is it happens for each, I mean, each survivor will tell you that it happens. They have like there's a moment that happens where they um recognize it. And so I think it's different for everybody that's in the
Mm-hmm.
situation. Certainly it's really hard when you're in the situation, but I think for friends and family, it maybe might be a little bit easier to recognize some things.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see like changes in behavior. So if let's say, your best friend, you met every, I don't know, third Monday for coffee, right? And all of a sudden they can't, like, all of a sudden they start to make excuses for why they can't meet. That's certainly a sign that pops up for people. Unexplained injuries
Mm-hmm.
um, are also signs. Or, you might see like a black eye and people say, well, I fell or something, and it just sort of maybe doesn't add up with like their ability or their physical capability.
Yeah.
Not to say those things couldn't happen, but you know your situation the best. And I think we often tell people to trust their gut
Mm-hmm.
if they feel like something's off. Even something as simple as like listening to little things like, oh, so and so doesn't like the way that I dress, so I changed the way I dress, or like I changed that, like little things about
Mm-hmm.
changing parts of yourself can be some signs of an unhealthy relationship. Um, Certainly any kind of financial um, control or lack of financial awareness or lack of
Mm-hmm.
resources. If somebody has to drive that person to and from everything or drive and stay with them, those are other signs
Mm-hmm.
for people to look out for. And certainly all the digital. So if they have access to all of your email accounts and you're requiring you to like share your location with them, or they put any kind of air tags or something in your car or in your bag without you knowing, those types of things
Yeah.
are definitely signs.
Yeah. And I don't know if you would know, but in Connecticut, like you said, mentioning putting air tags on someone, is that kind of thing illegal?
It's not, no. I mean, so like with technology, there's great things, right? There's great
Mm-hmm.
things about the AirTag. People I know use it for their kids all the time if they're like getting off the bus by themselves so that they can see if they got home. There's all positive things, and that's the thing about domestic violence is it can be a human behavior that in a healthy relationship
Mm-hmm.
is fine, but in an unhealthy relationship, it's the ability to exert power and control over that person and have them be afraid. So, no, there's nothing saying you can't put one in somebody's bag or
Your wife's car or
car
yeah.
or anything like that. Yeah.
Huh.
No. It's how you're using it and the
Mm-hmm.
why you're using it.
Because I know that, there's things about some states you're not allowed to record a conversation on the phone without consent and things like that. Do you think there's any need for on some of this stuff for the laws to be updated to kind of reflect the realities like of cyber stalking and some of those things?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know the cyber crime laws off the top of my
Hmm.
head, but I'm certainly something that we'd be willing to sort of look at and revisit to how that might fit in or work for survivors
Yeah.
and victims a little bit better. Absolutely. Um, yeah, but I think the other piece to the work is just the education and the knowledge. So for
Hmm.
people to recognize when that behavior becomes unhealthy,
Hmm.
how to get help. Um, so because I think people often find themselves in these relationships and they don't start out. It usually starts out with little subtle things like I
Hmm.
described, and then they start to escalate.
Yeah.
And once they start to escalate, that's when you need to know that there's a place that you can go or people you can turn to. And again, part of a perpetrator, part of a perpetrator's um, way of exerting power and control is to isolate you from your support system. So when you get to that place, you often don't have anybody left
Hmm.
to turn to. So I think our goal is to say, well, you'll always have somebody to turn to. There's 18 sites to turn to. There's a whole entire statewide hotline, and that none of this is your fault,
Yeah.
um, or your kid's fault, or your pet's fault, or whoever else's fault that you've been trained to believe it is.
So when we had you on last year, you had just completed revamping your website, I think. You like enhanced the
Yeah,
portal and you added resources and all the stuff you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah.
How's the last year of that going?
It's been good.
Hmm.
It's been good. We've had a lot of great reports. We had our maternal mortality report come out. So um, we just recognize that that's a really dangerous time for somebody that's experiencing intimate partner violence, that the time between pregnancy and postpartum is one of the most lethal times. It's often when
Really?
individuals, yeah.
Huh.
So we worked and continue to work with the healthcare delivery system on opportunities to get educational material in front of people. Last session, we were really successful at getting um, all the labor and delivery units across the state to have information about our resources put in the discharge packet for new moms and new parents. So that's one way that we were successful over the last year. And then we've been working with a Department of Labor grant around workplace policies and workplace education and training around domestic violence in the workplace. So you'll see our new toolkit is up on the website, and we encourage employers to just take a look at it, see if there's policies
So
that
it's
they can
free for them to
adopt.
use to
It's,
download and
yeah,
implement.
free. Yep, free for them to use and download. It gives suggestions on things they can do in their workplace. Um, and we've just really been trying to expand our work outside of just the criminal justice system,
Hmm.
and to really try to make sure that we're working with schools and hospital systems, workplaces, pretty much anywhere and everywhere that people are and
Hmm.
show up in their life, because I think we know that, like, if we want to work ourselves out of this work, then we need to start um, meeting people in the community where they are.
Yeah. Um, Lost my train of thought there for a second.
That's okay.
Uh, oh, we just talked about the website. What
Yeah,
is the website's address?
it is www.ctcadv.org, and
Okay.
our 24/7 statewide resource hotline website is ctsafeconnect.org.
All right, I'll pop those up on the screen and text it so everyone
Yeah,
can get them.
great.
Um, so do you feel with the website that it's helped to have kind of a main hub for the partner organizations, kind of all collaborating towards the one good?
Yeah, I think our website, the update of it, I'm really proud of. I think it's a main hub for resources, for knowledge. We have the most up-to-date laws related to domestic violence up there. Um, that's we are really proud of. So part of the reason that we're doing some of this workplace policy work is also because Connecticut for the last 2 years has been a state that adopted domestic violence as a protected class when it comes to
Hmm.
housing, public accommodations, employment, credit transactions. So there's more protections if an individual is experiencing um, domestic violence and it's impacting either happening in the workplace or impacting their workplace.
Mm. So the being a protected class in Connecticut, how unusual or common is that amongst the states?
Um, it's not that common.
Okay, so we're
In
kind of
fact,
leading on
actually,
that.
yeah, so it's
Okay.
actually not that common. New York has a protected class statute as well as Connecticut, but actually they just at the federal level introduced a Safe for Survivors Act that would make it hasn't even passed yet. It's just been introduced
Hmm.
in the Senate. Um, that would try to make that a federal protection. So Connecticut you know, um, is ahead of the curve of the federal government in this. And we're really excited about that. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, it's something to be proud of that we're leading.
Yeah.
Most importantly, we hope that this episode is another outlet where people can find that help is available to them if they need be. What should people do first if they need to get help?
So first and foremost, if somebody's in like real immediate danger, we
Hmm.
always encourage individuals to call 911. We work with law enforcement very closely around this issue. So we would certainly encourage that. If you find yourself in a very, very unsafe situation and need immediate assistance, 911 would be the best thing.
Hmm.
If you are not in an immediate danger and want to learn more about resources and connect with an advocate, we would certainly encourage you to call, email, text, or chat CT Safe Connect
Hmm.
and talk to an advocate. They will get in touch. They will actually connect you with one of our member programs, depending on where you live. They'll connect you to the local program, and you'll be able to then work with an advocate on what your current specifics concerns are, safety concerns are, um, in that moment. And then I think for those that might feel like either um, they're unsure or they suspect that one of their close friends, family, loved ones,
Hmm.
coworkers is involved in an unhealthy situation
Hmm.
or a dangerous situation, I think it's important for them to visit our website, ctcadv.org or CT Safe Connect, and learn about the resources so
Hmm.
that if and when that friend, family member, coworker, whoever comes to you and discloses anything, that you're equipped to
You're
actually know
ready
what
to
to do.
actually help them
Yeah,
out. Yeah.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And we really try, you don't have to be an expert on domestic violence. That's not your role. Your role is to just be there and be non-judgmental and help them access the services. We're not asking people to be a hero and like take people in or anything like that, although you certainly can if you want to. We're really asking them to just know about the issue and know about our services across the state to get them connected.
Ava's just encouraging someone to pick up that phone and call you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And do it with them. I mean, if they're afraid to do it, sit next to them while they do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's easier. Um,
Just to have someone there and
yeah.
to
Yeah,
support.
because once you've gotten to that place where you're in a place where you're gonna call a complete stranger, um, in one of like your worst times in your life, we want to make sure that you're doing it feeling supported, not just by us, but by whoever
That it's not going to make it
you're
worse. Yeah.
right. Yep.
And so that's how people can find help. But finally, how can someone help out your organization? Is there opportunity to
Yeah.
volunteer?
So I think for us, the way that you can help our organization, so our 18 sites for sure are
Hmm.
always looking for volunteers, donations, obviously, whether they be clothing donations, toy donations, personal care items. We often are looking for, cleaning supplies and things that people
And
need to
lists
move
of all those
into.
different things are on your website too.
Yeah. A list of those things. And obviously monetary donations they'll all take.
Hmm.
Um, but for the coalition, I think it's really educating yourself on our website and the resources,
Hmm.
asking us for trainings. If you are in an organization, whether it be your workplace or like a volunteer organization or
Hmm.
whatever it is, asking us for trainings on domestic violence is certainly one way that you can help us. Um, and then I think lastly is just if and when a conversation comes up, whether you see something in the news, um, newspaper, wherever it might be, I think trying to like stand in believing survivors instead of like what traditionally I think sometimes society will tend to say like, oh, well, is he or she telling the full story? And I think that's a piece that would be really helpful is if people, when they hear of a story, can really just sit with that and believe the survivor.
Yeah. Well, Megan Scanlon, thanks for coming on the show today. It's always good to talk to you,
Yeah.
and keep up the good work.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
We'd like to thank our guest, Megan Scanlon. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Joe Thornton is our executive producer, Christopher Gilson is our producer, Harry draws on the boards, and I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for a CCM chat series on our YouTube page.